and we view ourselves in a particular way. This identity is very tied in to popular culture and society at large. The flat earth topic upends everything we've been taught about our world and about ourselves. So when somebody is challenged with this information, it goes to the very core of their identity, and they behave in a way that's usually infantile and sophomoric, thus what you saw with our friend Bro Logic. This is engineered, this is on purpose, and this is why his second proof was, wouldn't boats go over the edge? Because he was engineered and programmed, like we all were, to think that this is the dumbest thing ever, and wouldn't boats just go over the edge? And that's dumb. And even a first grader knows that boats don't over. Yeah, because in kindergarten, the second day of school, before they even show you where the bathroom is and go through the process of, where to give your milk money, they're teaching you about the solar system and the planets and how Earth is a globe. It's the first thing we're all taught in cartoons when we're young. Before we're even taught the alphabet, we're taught about the globe.
Well, Z, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Minus. Okay, so if other land and resources not being, the main reason for hiding the fact that we would be on a flat Earth, what other reason would they have to hide that from people? Because the only thing that, in my logical mind, the only thing that I can think of that would bring them to hide that is land with other resources that they want to keep to themselves and away from the general public. So if the fact, that's why I asked you earlier about, do you think the Earth is like this, just endless span of land, this big mass that has more land that we don't know about? Other than that reason, I don't see any other reason why you would hide it from people.
All right, so you're asking why the lie, So here's the thing. First of all, I don't know why they're lying about it. I can only conjecture and give my opinion on it, and I'll do that if you want. I don't know how helpful it is because I'm not them. I could just say people lie for a lot of reasons. Usually people lie to protect something, all right, something valuable. If I have something valuable and I don't want you to have it, well, then maybe I'll lie about it, which goes to your point. If they do know that there's other lands potentially, then it would be in their interest to occult that from the general populace because they can benefit from it. So I think that's the point you were getting to.
Right.
Certainly, there's probably other reasons that I could think of. To me, the main reason is this, because along with the understanding of heliocentricity and the idea of a solar system and the vastness of space is also the idea of macroevolution. The idea that humans evolved over billions of years, basically from inanimate objects through a process called abiogenesis into single-celled amoebas, and then over the course of time into the complex organisms that we know as men and women. These things are all intricately tied in to this pseudo-scientific presentation that we're given in modern culture, all right? So these things are inextricably linked. Now, along with that is also this idea of either atheism or agnosticism or the idea of a distant God. Okay, so all these things, this whole quote unquote scientific presentation has all of these concepts wrapped up into it. So I would just say, if they can convince the entire world that we are basically an accident of the cosmos, and that we live in a so-called Goldilocks zone where we just got lucky and we happen to be the perfect distance from the sun where we could be inhabitable, and there's an infinite universe with, ever-expanding galaxies and things like that, then by nature, people will adopt an idea that there really is no God or no direct personal creator being, all right? With this idea, you then can impose a nihilistic society, a society which no longer has morals, ethics, values, and principles. A society where the idea of morals comes down to whatever the whim of pop culture is, all right? And it comes down to convention, where there really is no objective right or objective wrong, okay? And we look to the scientific intelligentsia as our modern day prophets, as opposed to some concept of a creator being or some, for lack of a better term, an overarching, God archetype. So maybe that's another reason, because if you can convince everybody that we're just an accident and we evolved over billions of years, you basically destroy God. Once you destroy God, you destroy any concept of rights and liberties, because even in our Declaration of Independence here in the United States, it says directly that your rights come from the Creator. They use that word specifically, the Creator. Well, if you can destroy any concept of a creator being, you've necessarily destroyed rights and liberties, and now you have a populace that is basically set up for control, tyranny, and domination.
It sounds like you're saying that this is more of a spiritual war than anything.
That's my understanding.
Is
much
that
like
you, Chuck, is that you talking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just couldn't see. You're not a flat earther?
I look, like I said earlier, man, I don't really subscribe to either side because I have yet to be given any kind of real proof to show me, without any question one way or the other.
Right.
Z, do you mind if I tell him what I think caused it? What one of the main reasons is?
Floor's yours, Harm.
No, Chuck, the way I look at it is from what we're taught in history, whatever is true about history, Constantine, which took over the church at the time, was a sun worshiper and all the things that's one like that. So I take it as when the Catholic Church was basically doing the sun worshiping with the sun worshiping rituals that they have, the Christmas time and all that. So they took, now Mother Earth was always the center of creation, but they took, and the sun and the moon paid homage to Mother Earth and to all of us inhabitants on Mother Earth. To just keep it real simple. So, but being a sun worshiper, they had Copernicus and do his theory, and they wanted to see what it was like to put the sun as the center, and everything paid homage to the sun, which they have to, what's it called? Reverse engineer, Z? Is that what they call it?
I would say that's a good term. They basically, go ahead, and I'll go. Yeah, I'll just mark what you said there.
Okay. Yeah. So they reverse engineer it. That's why today they still are changing everything in their model because it doesn't fit. So if something doesn't work, they create gravity. If something doesn't work, they make a black hole. Then they start throwing these words out that people like me, I don't know about you, Chuck, I ain't got a clue what they're talking about. And if you always look at their boards when they do all their mathematics, there's never an equal sign. There's never an answer because it's not real. So my basic thing is they took away Mother Earth being homage paid to it. And they made it to the sun as the sun worshipers, which we know Aztecs and sun worshiping was big around the earth as far as we know. Have you ever heard that about sun worshiping?
Yeah, most ancient religions worship the sun.
Yeah, they do that. And so that's why they took the sun and they wanted it to center and took away Mother Earth's creation. That's the simple way I say it. That's all, Z.
Yeah, thanks, Harm. And just to, people in the chat are asking for my channel link. My name is Zetetic Warrior, and I dropped the link in the chat. So thanks, everybody.
AKA Z-rific.
Well,
yeah, if you want to go to my channel, it's in the chat. I don't mind a little bit of shameless self-promotion here. Zetetic Warrior, I dropped the link twice. All right.
No, I was going to say, I'll be honest with you. I mean, my biggest contention with everything is we supposedly have all of this, viewing technology in space, right? Got the Hubble, we got, the James Webb, we got all these satellites, we got, the freaking space station. Why have none of these things been spun around where you can actually see the Earth in its entirety?
Because you can't.
Right, it's a great question.
And that's why I say I don't believe one way or the other, because logically what I see is flat around me. I've been in planes, when I was up in the air and I looked down, what I saw was flat. When I looked at the horizon was flat. I've been in situations like I've been to the ocean where you see the ocean even all the way out to your peripheral. You would think that if there's some kind of curve, you'd be able to see it, even in your peripheral. I mean, right or wrong. I mean, if all you see is one straight fucking blue line for as far as your eyes can see, you'd think eventually you'd be able to see some curve.
Yeah, but
I don't see this.
Straight ahead. straight ahead, it's only so far. It's more left to right than it is straight ahead, right?
Right. That's
Well,
what I'm
you can
saying.
see-
Looking through my peripheral, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Left to right, he can see to his right just as far as he can straight ahead, and to his left he can. So it's double the width is double the length. Is that about right?
Something like that. I mean, you just think
Yeah.
that when you can see as far as you make your eyes look, when you actually try and, use every bit of your eye and look through your peripheral and see all the sides and the front, when you focus on a line, it's easier to do. And like I said, yet have I seen any curve anywhere. I mean, there's things that, I've seen pictures of that don't make no sense. I've seen news reports where they report seeing the Chicago's fucking skyline all the way in fucking, Canada and shit. And that shouldn't happen. And there's a lot of things that point to it, but there's also a lot of things that, like, why are all the other things in the sky the shape of a circle?
Right.
Let's
Talk about some of those things.
Hey, before you do, I'm gonna let you guys know it's great ass conversation. I wish I could stay, man. If you guys are on at 7, I'll be back on.
All right, later.
I mean,
Dean.
and mind you, dude, I'm an idiot when it comes to this shit. You know what I'm saying? But I don't have a problem having a conversation. I've always wondered why people get so overly emotional on one side or the other about it.
Right.
I told Z a story one time about my golfing partner, and he knew about me. And one day, I said, "Hey, look at the sun." Talk about blowing. He took his 6-iron and threw it as far as he could and stuck it up into a tree. I've told you that before, Z. It just triggers them, like you said. All I said is look at the sun.
Yeah,
I remember. Man, Well, a good one is that you look at the fucking eclipse this year. I mean, I'm trying to figure out where the moon was in the sky before it passed over the fucking sun.
That's a mystery we'll never know.
Because me and my son sat outside and watched the fucking progress of that thing for like fucking 45 minutes to an hour. You know what I'm saying? Where was the moon? We didn't see it nowhere in the sky.
And the whole time you could have been playing golf. I'm teasing.
I wanted to kind of maybe hit on some more of the, some of the proofs for, proofs of globe, proofs of flat Earth while we're here. Because
you ever wonder if maybe we're not supposed to know, if that's what the creator's intention was for us.
Well, the Bible says you're not supposed to know. The Bible says that, and I'm not saying I'm let's say a biblical person as such, but the Bible says that we'll all be dead before we would know, and we're not supposed to know, which is interesting because all the quote unquote flat earthers are saying is that we really don't know. We're actually saying that they're presenting you with a story, this grand story that they have the heavens figured out and they know what it is. We're the ones saying, whoa, hold on. Their evidence doesn't hold up. We appear to live on a level topographical plane, okay, where there's mountains and valleys, but one in which oceans are level and horizontal. And we really don't know what the sky is. And we don't know if we're the ones who are actually telling you, hey, there seems to be a lie going on. There's no evidence to support their model. And indeed, all evidence shows the opposite, and that we really don't know what it is. And most flat earthers will tell you that the heavens are for God. They're the heavens. The luminaries are there. We don't have to tell you what they are. We're under no compulsion. I'll speak for myself. I'm not compelled to tell you why things fall down, what they call gravity, or why the moon does what it does or the sun does. I can give you my opinion, but I think it's actually psychopathic to think and to say that we have answers for these things. And that's what popular science is telling you. They're telling you they know why the moon does what it does and why there's an eclipse and how far away the stars are and the heavenly bodies. They're the ones giving you the answers. Once they're debunked, there's no burden then on the flat earth community to then fill in a new story for you. It's like I was trying to, when I was trying to discourse with Bro Logic, if somebody makes a claim, it's their burden to prove it. All right.
Right.
So if you can debunk the claim, there's no then burden to fill in a new claim. So
yeah, you don't have to give the answer as to what's really going on. All you have to do is prove that what they're saying is wrong.
Exactly. So, okay, if somebody accuses somebody of a crime And I could exonerate myself and say, well, I couldn't have stole the cookie from the cookie jar because I was 1,000 miles away visiting my Aunt Tilly. And I could show it. I could show the plane ticket. I could show pictures of me with my Aunt Tilly on that day. And I went to an ATM machine and they had me on CCTV. Once I prove that there's no way I committed the crime, I then don't have to supply a new suspect for you. See, the burden is on the claimant. So the analogy goes to anything logically. If I can come in and show you that there's no way that we live on a globe because we can see a mountain from 275 miles away from the ground, I then don't have to explain what's the sky is, what the eclipse is, and how far the sun is and what it is. That's not logically valid. That's actually one of the prime logical fallacies. The reality is the globe has been debunked. Where we go from there, the sky's the limit. But I wanted to maybe, get back to some of the things you said about, how you see proofs on either side and you can't make your mind up. And I could see you're open-minded, but you said something very specific. You said, the planets in the sky appear to be round and they appear to have sphericity, right? I mean, we've never seen the other side of the moon, but I can concede that the moon, when you look at it, it lends itself towards being some kind of sphere. I don't have to argue that. But I guess the question is, again, logically, how does the ground that we live on relate to the things in the sky? See, it's only within the pre-indoctrinated paradigm that we've all been conditioned with that you associate the earth with the other things in the sky. But again, what in your experience would lead you to that understanding? Nothing really. You're on the ground here and the sky's above and the sky moves and it appears to reset over and over again. So the idea that we are amongst those other things in the heavens is only something that exists in our minds. That's not in reality. So it's actually illogical to try to associate the things in the sky with the ground that we walk on. That's what it's like to say to people, because they'll say, well, the other planets. And I would say, well, who told you Earth is a planet? And why should you think Earth is a planet? It's only in your mind that it's a planet. Because in reality, Earth is Earth. And the planets are the planets. To think that we are the same as those is only something that was taught to us, but there's nothing to demonstrate that in reality, and it's actually logically flawed.
I like how you said, Chuck, that you just can't see the curve. Even with your naked eye, you should be able to just be able to recognize a little bit of curvature looking left to right out at the ocean and stuff. I agree with you. It's just simple. It's like, then you can just go a step further and do their little simple math. It took me 3 months to get that little math problem, 8 inches times the mile squared. I mean, honestly, I taught it to a third grader and they got it quicker than I did. And it took me 3 months before my thick head could understand that. Do you understand 8 inches per mile squared?
No, I don't. I'm not a math guy like that.
I said the same thing. And it's such a simple formula,
Right.
And let's see if I can just help you a little bit, because this is what took me until I got that through my head. I kept saying, how would I do this? And I bring in my pencil, paper, calculator, and it's so simple. So 8 inches times the mile squared. So if you're looking at something 5 miles away, we square the mile. So what's 5 squared? Do you know?
5 times 5 what?
5 squared. It's 5 times
squared?
5.
Well, that would be what, 25?
Right. Times 8 inches. Whatever that is. I think that's 400. Right? So you could just convert this. That's all it is. So if you're looking at something, like you say, when you're at the ocean, you're looking at something, it's 10 miles away. So you square that mileage, which is 10 times 10 is 100 times 8 inches.
Yeah, or 0.66, so 66 feet.
Yeah, but just
because you're doing inches. Yeah, you're doing inches, right?
I know. And so at 10 miles, it's 10 times 10. So it's the mile squared. Anything it is, 8 inches times the mile squared. So I'm going to test you. So if something's 7 miles away, what is the answer?
I have no idea.
7. Okay, 7. What do you do with the mile?
You square it.
Okay, so it's 7 miles away. What's the answer to that?
7 miles away, 7 inches.
7 times 7.
49.
49 times the 8 inches. That's all it is. It's 2 steps. And if you want to convert it to feet, then you do that. But it's only 2 steps. So if it's 6 miles away, you square the mile. That's why I'm doing this, Z. People really just don't get it. It's hard for us. It was really hard. So 6 times 6 is 36. Times what? What do you times it by?
7.
Chuck? 8 inches.
Look, dude, it's math, man, and all this
I
math
know, but
it's going right over my head.
See, that's why it was the same with me, Chuck. It's the same with me. We're programmed somehow to have it go through our head.
Without the math, I just know within myself that there's a certain distance that I can see, and that within a certain distance, there should be some kind of abject fucking change in, the shape or the line. You should see the line starting to fucking deviate from being straight, and horizontal.
See, I've had to teach so many people. I won't go any farther than that until they can comprehend that. Because if they can't, like I tell them, it took me 3 months. But no one sat there and babied me with it. So that's you're 4 years again, Z.
And I get where you're coming from, Harmon, because when we tell people, hey, you can see a mountain 275 miles away standing on the ground. Okay, people can't comprehend the impact of that unless they understand the math. You're exactly right.
Right.
Because
CCD, look, also to CCD's comment, I'm high as fuck right now too. So that's probably why I'm not even getting any of this math.
Here's the thing, man. You know what got me, Chuck, is like this, man. The idea that they tell us we're moving. We just all accept this idea that we're moving, man, and not just moving. They say we're spinning faster than the speed of sound. All right, over 1,000 miles an hour if you're on the equator, or if you're where I live, it's like 800 miles an hour. But either way, that's faster than the speed of sound, and that's only one direction. Okay, so they're saying we're moving.
Right. The way they describe that we're moving is like when you get one of the gyroscope rides at the fair or at an amusement park where it spins you in fucking 8 different fucking directions all at once.
Right.
And when you get inside of one of those, you literally feel your body being pulled in 8 different fucking directions at once.
Chuck, I went on a Gravitron like 10 years ago, it's called, and I threw up. I threw my guts up when I got out of there, man.
So did I. I ain't gonna lie. And I was dumb. I told the guy to fucking crank it all the way up full blast.
So to me, that's what got me, is this idea that they convinced us that we're moving in multiple vectors and incalculable speeds. Okay. That's my point when I say that the default position is a immovable, motionless Earth, one in which the sky moves above us, because that's what we experience. If you're going to tell me that we're moving in all these directions at such a high speed, you have to be able to prove that to me. And that's when I realized, wow, not only is the globe silly, it's actually physically impossible. And when people ask me, well, why are you a flat earther? And I tell them it's because the model that they presented to us is physically impossible. There's no movement. Once I realized that, I said, oh, the ground that I'm standing on is fixed and it's under me and it's the sky above me that's moving. It's so simple. Okay. And everything that they use to try to explain the globe falls apart. We can talk about the so-called horizon at 3 miles over the ocean. We can talk about Aristosthenes and sticks and shadows, or shadows and wells. Okay. It all falls apart. It doesn't even get off the ground. Okay. Not to mention, how do you have a pressurized atmosphere that exists next to space? They'll just invoke gravity over and over again. But that can't be demonstrated. It can't be substantiated. When you realize how ludicrous and insane what we all believe actually is, it's more of an indication to the nature of this reality. And that's where I always like to lead this conversation, to the point where it's really about understanding the deceptive nature of this reality. And that's what most people can't get past. And that's why most people get so triggered, like was evidenced earlier. It's because even a mildly logical and rational mind realizes that, oh, if this is true, if we have been lied to such a degree, the implications of that are enormous. And a rational mind understands that. And they can't grasp the magnitude of such an audacious deception So they reject it outright, even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Because the reality is, the flat earth is simple to prove because it's just the world. It's just the way things are. It's not even complicated. It's the lie that's complicated. And that's what people can't get by. And that's why people have such a strong emotional reaction to it. Because as I said before, it goes to the very foundation, the core of their identity. People can't face that. It's difficult. There's consequences. And one more thing, what I wanted to bring up with Bro Logic was that he wants to know, like, well, how come everybody in the flat earth community seems to be so out there, like hippie like, and kind of, the furthest thing from a normie? Because the reality is, to truly embrace this concept requires, first of all, a degree of courage. Second, a huge helping of intellectual honesty, but even more so, it requires somebody to challenge the very paradigm, the lens through which they view this reality. And that's the problem, because it's easy to go along with consensus. It's easy to go along with the authority. But again, none of that is logically sound. It doesn't matter if everybody believes a lie. If everybody on earth believes the same lie, it doesn't make it true. It's still just a lie. But as men and women, we have certain foundational principles and tools that we can use to derive some degree of truth and objectivity. Primary amongst those are logic, reasoning, and the tenets of the scientific method. And if you are a true scientist, not a pseudoscientist, you quickly come to the understanding that the idea of a convexing globe that's rotating and orbiting at incalculable speeds in multiple directions is physically impossible. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chuck, you say, but before that, you never even question those things he's talking about. What's the most you ever questioned before you heard of flat earth? Did you ever question you were on the ball? You probably never did, right?
No.
And you never questioned the Hubble telescope. You never questioned the moon landing, or probably none of that.
But there were other things that I questioned. I started out life early on questioning a lot of our reality. I started out with the whole alien thing, and that's where it all started for me. Alien thing, government conspiracies early on in life, like around junior high school and shit.
When's the first time you actually heard of flat earth that said, let me think what they're saying?
Dude, to be honest with you, the first time I heard about flat earth was probably about, other than when they talked about it in school a little bit, in grade school, I would say probably, I don't know, 7-10 years ago, to be quite honest with you.
But when's the first time you listened about it?
Back then when they were talking about it, I was like, these people are fucking retarded. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I was like, but it caused me to start watching. This was back when YouTube was still YouTube, and there were all kinds of videos and people putting out information back before they started removing all this shit. And so I started looking into it. And look, I'll be honest, there are some arguments as far as flat Earth goes that that they have a legitimate argument. But
did you see the NFL player?
Opinion, I think, well, in my opinion, though, that there's still legitimate arguments for the globe idea too. Nobody's really given a real solid answer. It's just all basically what we're doing is we're taking what other people say and hoping that they actually did the real research and did the real science and that they're giving us the truth. So we're putting a lot of faith in other people and the work that other people did. And hoping that they're telling us the truth instead of lying. That's what I really see on both sides.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I want to address some of the chatters. I've been briefly looking at the chat. First off, the people that have been trolling me for going on 2 years now, but refuse to come up and have a conversation with me, I just find that interesting. Is that you've been trolling me for 2 years, but yet you have yet to come up and have discourse with me. And two, there was a comment to say, why do flat earthers think they know more than every scientist ever? But again, if you don't come up here and talk, I don't know how we can have discourse. Other than say, then
real quick, if I could raise enough money through YouTube for you guys to put me on a fucking spaceship and go up into the fucking, get shot up into space, I would gladly fucking do it in a heartbeat. And that's to respond to EAE. He said go on a spaceship. People do it all the time. You guys want to fund that spaceship trip? I will gladly do it, and I will come back and tell you what I see.
Real quick, Noel, is Noel a flat earther? Are you?
I don't think she's paying attention anymore.
Well, she's zoned out.
I just want
to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to ask the person that says, why does every flat earther think they're smarter than all the scientists? Did you also trust the science over the last 4 years, given the medical recommendations that the so-called scientific community was given? I hope you didn't, and if you did, my sympathies go out to you. That's all I'll say on that one.
Is this one of your trolls?
Samuel said, "Earth is flat. Explain mountains." Boom.
See, that's disingenuous, right?
No,
that's why
he's just joking, man. Is all that is.
Yeah.
He's jokingly serious. Because look, I understand I understand with anything. I mean, I'm more open-minded to it than most to have the discussion. I think it's an interesting discussion. I think it's an interesting topic to sit and talk about. If people want to do it without getting all emotional about it. It just, for me, like I said, the thing that I can't seem to get past is people get so overly emotional about whether the earth is flat or round to where they can't even have a fucking discussion or a real fucking, engagement about it. It's weird to me. It's really fucking weird to me why people, and I don't understand why people are so emotionally attached to either side.
Well, because there's implications, man. It's this is beyond the focal topic of FE versus globe. It's about God, spirituality, so-called science, culture, beliefs. So everything's wrapped up in this topic because it's really an umbrella topic, and where one falls in this argument basically gives an indication usually into their overall mindset, again, their worldview. Because if you have the understanding that you live on a fixed immovable earth, one that is the center of the cosmos, well, there's implications there because it indicates a created world, and that implies a creator directly. And it's counter to the argument that we're basically products of an accidental, insignificant, uncaring universe. There's huge implications with this. It's why it's such a hot button topic, and some of this is to be expected.
I'll be honest with you. When I have discussions about this on my channel, I troll both sides while the discussion's going on. I really do. I troll both sides.
I was going to ask, Nach, are you still there, Nachiketa?
Yeah, I'm here. I've been here.
I just want to tell you, I was on the road for the last 4 hours, and your interview with F Up the World, it kept me going. Thank you so much for that.
All right. Well, you're welcome, and thank you for saying so. I appreciate it.
It was a real good interview.
Cheers. Raphael, how's it going, man? It's been a while.
Good evening, gentlemen. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Loud and clear.
Unfortunately.
So if I may, I'd bring up a few things. I've been listening the past few hours, I think, or most of it, if that's okay.
Please do.
All right. So first of all, props to Nachiketa. Everyone, thumbs up. Where else can you see something like this going down? Amazing. Both the conversations and the chat, very insightful, interesting, and revealing and entertaining, I would say. Also, shout out to Nachiketa's recent interview with Alex, Conspiracy Music Guru. Everyone here on the panel, or this was my other question actually, whether we should do a poll in the chat, whoever believes the just NASA model, yes or no. So we know even who we're talking to in terms of audience. Could be an interesting question, because otherwise Conspiracy Music Guru, gives his own view of whatever he, discovered or found strange. So there's now 5 things I want to bring up, but each just very briefly. Someone talked about old YouTube, and back then it wasn't quite clear yet. Is it a psyop? Like, what's happening? Why are all these strange videos popping up? And then only a few years later, I saw some banned lists. I'm not even sure where I saw them anymore, but they were supposed YouTube internal banned lists. And supposedly, interestingly enough, they targeted specifically certain, and I'm not going to say more, let's say, incidents with guns, and also in particular flat Earth. So that's just curious as to why you would want to ban it. Then, just to bring the things together in a way or show the contradictions, from the few documents from NASA that I've seen and understand the most basic ideas, they always talk about assuming an unmoving flat Earth or whatever. So it's a little bit strange that even for the supposed rocket science, they would be using that as an assumption. I think that's a, how should I say, huge red flag. Then, of course, all they show ever is CGI. From what I understand, there is no, real pictures. And what I'm not, or what may be why everything is going to getting to a close now, and they make the big PR for the final experiment, which have some pointed out is merely an observation, I would say, on some random ice sheet, which doesn't necessarily tell you anything. Why not simply have open exploration of the area that is now under the Antarctic Treaty? And why is no one, even from a basic social or skeptic point of view, just asking, why is that? Why don't we take 100 4K cameras and map everything there? And then the question is going to be resolved. Like, what's the big deal? Of course, we can assume why that's not being pushed for. But, why debate about the shape of the Earth? Why not just go and cartography it open source style? Again, we can assume why that happens. Then what never made sense to me, and I even questioned in school, but of course you get no answers, is how mass attracts mass, which I understand is the basis of gravity, although I also understand that even here they use different models at different times. And then the last thing I want to bring it to, and of course have you comment on anything I said, is kind of the meta thing of what's happening right now, and why continuously there seems to be this big imbalance in the discourse and in the respect that really, from many of the conversations I've seen, and other people have confirmed this as well, it seems very one-sided in terms of one, I'll just call it the anti-flat side, to not determine it more, or let's say the pro-NASA side, or however you would call it, that they seem to lose it really quickly and very quickly descend into, I would say, non-topical things. Whilst I could understand, even in the talk earlier, if I, for whatever reason, do not have the patience to listen through, I could understand why someone who's read into this would seem like he's schooling me. But just as for me, I've been trying to listen for years to whatever, Globebusters and whoever else, even to get a first grasp both on the NASA model and on the alternative model. And of course, it just takes some time even to start to understand the arguments. And for that, at least for me, I'd rather sit and listen than talk, but that's just me. So I said a lot now. Thank you.
I got the one that I want to get on you. When you said about the documents, with all the documents in NASA and the Air Force and Russia, they all came out with a non-flat rotating Earth, right? I was so excited. I went to those sites. I printed them all out. It was like 60 pages. I printed out just the highlights of each one, took it to my golf buddies. And I said, this has got to be the answer. They look at this. They do it. I was so excited. And our naivety is just beyond compare. They said, sure, they have to do that because where they're landing, it is flat. So they have to pretend it's flat, even though it's round. And that was the end of it. That was all how they took it. Oh, God. Anyway, that's the one thing I wanted to comment on.
So I just wanted to jump in. First of all, that was really great that Raphael just shared that. And I've enjoyed Raphael's appearances here regarding alternative history. And it was really cool to hear your thoughts on the FE topic. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to jump on one thing you said about this flat Earth censorship. The reality is that in 2016, and this is mainstream news, flat Earth was the second most Google search term. It was the second most searched term in Google for that year. And at that point, somebody realized they needed to put the kibosh on it. Right away, the head of YouTube was drugged before Congress. This is documented, and was asked by a congressional committee, what she planned to do about misinformation on the YouTube platform, specifically the flat Earth topic. And there was, she admitted at that point that it was going to be shadow banned and basically given less priority in the algorithm. So the idea that, flat Earth is this niche topic that's relegated to certain corners of YouTube. Well, yeah, if the algorithm is promoting the likes of Jake Paul and that Tyler Oliveria and people that are going to do hit pieces on flat Earth and Professor Dave and Simon Dan and McToon, well, of course, it's not going to be larger. And like the gentleman said earlier, it's just sort of a bunch of fringe people who are kind of conspiracy nuts into this topic. The reality is it's heavily censored and suppressed, like many things that are truthful and like most information that goes against the popular zeitgeist and the narrative that promotes the ruling class agenda. So flat Earth has been censored. The reality is, the information regarding the true nature of this Earth has been around ever since the globe deception was launched. Flat Earth is not a new YouTube phenomenon. It's been around since the mid 1800s and likely before. It was present throughout the 60s and 70s and 80s, and it only became popular on social media, yes, in 2015. But this isn't a new topic. The reality is, when people look with discerning eyes, logically, and they use their God-given discernment and their sovereignty of mind, their sovereignty of consciousness, they understand very quickly that there has been a massive deception regarding our world. Okay, now the implications of that are massive. So this topic is inflammatory for a lot of reasons, but certainly has been censored. There's a million ways we can go with it. So I'm willing to talk about anything, and like I said, anybody from the chat, we're up here with an open panel. We're having logical open discourse. It seems like Nachiketa is open to having anybody up here. So you're welcome to come up and we can engage in the discourse.
Hey, Notch, do you care if I drop the StreamYard link in my chat in case anybody wants to hop up?
Sure, go for it.
I mean, if anybody hops up that you don't know their name, just ask me and I'll verify whether or not they're decent or not.
Yeah, it's all good. I hear you. Thank you for that. Welcome to the panel, Rocky, sir. How are you? That's a very a nice hat you got there.
I'm doing good. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You could be a little bit louder.
All right. Yeah, it's just one of my summer hats. Straw hat.
You guys get feedback from me.
John, you're a little bit on the quiet side. You could turn yourself up a little bit, I think, if you can. John, can you try to speak?
I didn't want to interrupt.
That's fine, but do you mind turning up the volume a little bit because you're harder to hear? Turn up the volume. Do you need help with turning up the volume?
Yep.
Okay. Where are you coming from, John? Are you coming over from Chuck's channel?
And I need to turn some fans off. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, take your time. No problem.
Yeah, I think he came from my channel. I think he's one of the new viewers I've got.
Actually, I'm not.
And another thing, while you're waiting on him, Notch, today on your interview with F'd Up World, you made a notice that how many, for such a small channel as you are, how many views you get is really way out of proportion. I've seen people with 10,000 view memberships only don't get as many views as you do. So that's a prop too.
Well, thank you there, Harmon. I appreciate that. I don't know why it's happening. I think it's just the grace of God. And, I feel very fortunate and lucky for having so many loyal viewers who come. And I would say that I am amazed myself, having only 1,700 subs and having views as big, as much as the number of subs that I have. So I'm very proud of my subscribers and the people who come here. Even the trolls, I have a lot of props to the trolls who come here to make it entertaining for us. It's all good fun.
But it's noticed. So good job.
Hey, trolls are just as important to your viewer base as everyone else. Trolls keep your channel alive.
I think it's because
It's been a long
I
time.
watched your channel for about 6 weeks, and you're the first flat earther, truther I've seen that has the open panel like you do.
Yeah, there's not one around like him.
Z was doing something similar. Z is right next to me. He Zetetic Warrior. Go ahead.
Very well, is it?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I think I cut out a little bit. Go ahead.
Where you been, Z? Haven't seen you for a while. Are you still got a channel?
Hey, Rock, much love. Yeah,
There's
much
probably
love.
About 30-second delay here on my end. I might try this again once.
I mean, we could hear you, John. I don't know if Notch maybe, I don't know if he could bump up your volume on his end, but I mean, we could hear you. You're just soft. That's all.
Okay. How about John? Can you turn your cam off? That might help with the bandwidth. And Noel, do you mind turning your cam off as well? And maybe that will help with the bandwidth.
Wait, what?
Can you cam down, Noel?
What?
Cam down.
He doesn't want to see your face anymore.
No, it's not about that. We're having difficulty communicating. So because there's a lot of, yeah, thank you. Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, John. So yeah, I've been watching your channel I stumbled on you about maybe 6-7 weeks ago. I don't comment. I typically avoid the comment box, the chat section. And I really appreciate what you're doing. I think one of the reasons you're so popular is because the open platform. I know you said Z did the similar thing. I hadn't stumbled on Z. I stumbled on you through Rose, through Crow. I typically just laid back and observed, and it took me about 2 years of looking into the flat Earth topic to finally see it. And I think what it took is understanding a lot of the other lies and deception first. And so I was like, oh, this is how they operate. Very deceitful.
I'll jump in. That's a great point, John. Once your mind is open to the understanding that we live in a realm of great deception, then you can approach it. So I think your journey probably is similar to a lot of people, similar to mine. It took me 2 years also. And I had to work through all the barriers, confirmation bias, cognitive dissonance, to finally come to the understanding. And you have to let go of the indoctrination. It's very difficult because we have certain beliefs, but we think that they're facts. See, most people have a certain foundational viewpoint or a paradigm through which they view the world. That paradigm is based on a belief set. Most people hold those beliefs as fact. They're not understanding they're simply beliefs. And this is not just about flat Earth. This is about so many things. This is about history, religion. I mean, we have people up here on panel who understand the complete deception regarding the popular history that we've all been presented with. It's the same thing. We are taught certain things at a very young age. Society presents a certain story. People operate on sort of a consensus, but most of these things are beliefs. You believe that you're orbiting a sun. You believe that ancient Rome existed like it did. You believe that Jesus was a man who lived, on, the Arabian Peninsula in the land we now call Israel. You believe those things, right? People hold these things as fact, but they are merely beliefs. So when you look at this entire reality, you can come to an understanding of, how we view things, and that most things are subjective. It's very hard to get down to the objective reality of this world. That's why, again, I'm so big on promoting the tenets of logic, reasoning, discernment. You can use certain things to get beyond your own biases to attempt an understanding of this world as it is, separate from your conception of it, separate from some cognitive intellectual model that you have that's comfortable, because it's typically only comfortable because it's supported, it's reinforced. It's reinforced for a reason, because if there is an overarching one world agenda, which I conjecture there is, they benefit from your conditioned understanding of the reality that they're presenting. But these things are very difficult to understand. That's why truth is a journey. People who think they know ultimate truth are very likely incorrect. And we need to approach these things where we can try to remove our own subjectivity from the equation. And that's, again, to give Nachiketa his props by hosting an open panel in the way that he does it. It allows open discourse. And then if you get a bunch of minds to come up and engage with each other, we can then approach some degree of objectivity. And when we are presented with new information, the question is, are you willing to incorporate that new information into your consciousness, or will you reject it outright because of its discomfort, because it goes against the community? Being rejected from a community is very difficult. We are biologically programmed to bond emotionally with the other humans around us. This is for survival. Take away evolution, take away things like this. We're talking about biological programming. However you think we got it. We need each other. Our very survival is dependent upon it. So when you go against popular culture, okay, when you behave in ways that are different from the majority, you then are in some degree of peril. So it really requires a degree of courage to approach these things. And the more people get together and the more people speak up and the more people present themselves authentically with vulnerability, well, then the more power the truth has. And that's what channels like this and others like this serve beyond any financial reward or anything else. So salute to everybody.
Man, you are so right, brother. So right.
So since the floor is open, unless anybody has another topic, I'd like to talk about alternative history, and
Yeah, do it.
maybe
Yeah, Raphael's here. He's been doing a lot of great interviews with David Ewing Jr. And Raphael is my friend in or what do you call it? Partner in crime for the alternative historical research, I would say. But go ahead, let's talk about this.
all right, so maybe I'll just launch it. This idea of again, alternative history is growing amongst truther circles. And you mentioned this David
Is
Ewing
everybody
Jr.
roboting? I can't understand nobody.
I think it's just you, Rock.
Well, it's just you, Rock.
Yeah, because I understand everybody.
But I wanted to bring up, because I've been looking more and more into this idea, the works of Fomenko and this David Ewing Jr. And I'm new to the topic for the most part. I've come to it from a roundabout way, but to me, this is increasingly fascinating. This idea that we could have been presented a history that we could have been presented a history that was made up whole cloth to the tune of languages that were invented, cultures that were basically fabricated and presented, religions that seem to have been generated for control. This is a huge topic. I mean, this is just as big as the discussion regarding the shape of the earth. We're talking about deception that goes to the very foundation of our worldview and goes to the very top of this pyramid, whatever's up there. So I just would like to go down that direction and, maybe explore some of that.
Yeah, Raphael, do you want to address this?
Yeah, so it's interesting in what way these topics seem to intersect, at least in terms of going deeper into research. I would actually say anyone who's looking into this, and this is oftentimes the problem, because the same thing that happens with FE, and you have then, professors, whether they are or whatever, and so on, explaining things with million views. And I mean, now, again, some proponents of alternative views seem to get more traction again, and you have all the strange stuff that Nachiketa really has been documenting well with the final experiment. So something is going on here, but I would just encourage anyone who maybe isn't familiar with this yet. I would almost say it takes the same, how should I say, patience and ability to sustain cognitive dissonance and time to kind of wade through it, and or it's, as you very well explained, it's really about understanding how everything is a belief and how sometimes it can be painful to let go of them or really understand what you identify with and why. But because just as with cosmology is such a huge topic, not even talking about whatever, where is Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse, however they call it, but even just, and that's of course then brings up maybe more confusion or unrest, just like you said, oh, do you even know how fast the Earth is moving, supposedly? Which what maybe, as if I say I believe NASA, I don't even know what I'm supposed to believe in, right? And then you realize, oh, you actually know very little at all. And similar with history, I'd wager, how many people even paid attention in history and don't only have the let's say, actual active history knowledge of maybe 5 to 50 memes. And I don't want to put anyone down, and I can understand why history is boring. And now understanding most of it is forged is probably better. You didn't pay too much attention anyways. But yeah, so these are some of the thoughts I have on that. But what I'd like, only if you want to comment on it, Z, for a second, how do you see the meta going on right now with the flat earth topic and also this history topic? Do you see like both increasing, and because people just really are now really starting to turn every stone? Because also here, I wouldn't claim, oh, I'm sure 200 years ago there was a great empire, whatever. We still don't know, but at least to really start overturning every stone, because we understand, yes, you can be lied to about literally everything. What do you think?
Well, all I could say is, the first thing is both topics require one to really challenge their belief system, as you and I both alluded to. Now, regarding, I'll speak on the FE community, which I'm very tied into, and this idea of alternative history. There seems to be a split. There is a significant portion of the flat earth community who is embracing this understanding of an alternate history. But there's also a significant portion who reject it because many in the flat earth community are strong biblical believers.
I was about to say Bible, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Big point, yes.
They're very strong into what we consider the Hebrew cosmology, right? Which is an avenue that many flat earthers go to, because once they come to the understanding of the globe lie, it's easy to fall into this the idea of the biblical cosmology.
It's really, sorry to have to interrupt, it's really the Missionaria Protectiva from Dune again. And I sensed this multiple times, even with newborn, again, Christians or whatever. It's like really the hardcore fallback programming. And I don't want to put anyone down who finds a spiritual path in whatever way is good for you. Please do that. But I really sense this is like, yeah, hardcore fallback programming. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, all logic goes out the window. Please continue.
Right. So when one gets into the alternative history, it by nature brings up an alternative history regarding the biblical characters, because the Bible is regarded by Christians as a historical book. Okay. And it's taken as literal. The timeline of Moses, the story of Moses, down to, the lineage all the way from Adam and Eve, through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and down towards the Jesus. But when one looks into the alternative history, the Bible narrative then becomes in question. And as you mentioned, this is a very difficult hurdle for many of the religious sector, because it challenges the very, their spirituality. They've tied their spiritual nature, their consciousness, their mentality into a religion, which is based on doctrine, tradition, and orthodoxy. When you challenge the orthodoxy and the traditions of the religion, you usually run into this very strong resistance from those who are associated with that particular organization. If we talk about an alternative history, you're talking about an alternative Jesus. Jesus becomes something else. The Israelites become something else. Okay, the pre-indoctrinated understanding and belief regarding Islam becomes questioned. So once you rock the boat with the religious understanding, you see the reactions of people, and I think that's why it's difficult. But again, for me, the journey is getting beyond the things that we believe and moving towards the evidence. What can be proven? How can we evaluate information and then incorporate that into our consciousness so that we can grow into our full potential? And this takes courage. So certainly this alternative history understanding is a courageous endeavor, because it's going to be rejected outright. And again, people are just going to point to so-called science. They'll invoke science as if science is personified, as if science is some type of entity that has sentience, but really science is a method. So if we're looking at history, we need to look at things like records, whether they be geological records, written records, astrological records, to try to come to some understanding of what history may or may not have been. And again, if one looks at the evidence, one may be led down a path that goes counter to the narrative. And again, that's why I think it's so fascinating, because if indeed we're looking at a world that had advanced technology, if we're looking at buildings that had some type of purpose, whether they were some type of antique technology or some other type of mechanism, whether we're looking into a culture that may or may not have existed and could have been made up whole cloth, languages that could have been new products of the last couple hundred years. This goes against the narrative, but does it go against science? Because people invoke science, but what they're really invoking is pseudoscience. And I encourage people who just rotely refrain science over and over again. What is science? Who controlled academia for the last 500-600 years? Start looking into it. It ends and begins with the Roman Catholic Church. They were controllers of all academia in the Western world. If you look at their beginnings, if you look at their practices, if you try to understand the history of the Church of Rome, what they actually believe, the methods that they've employed to squelch any knowledge that goes contrary to their narrative, you may then begin to get an understanding of who has the knowledge and why they may have been presenting a particular narrative. So when people invoke science, I implore you, what does that mean? Because science is nothing more than a method. It's a method of discovery. More directly, it's a method through which we can elucidate the cause of an effect that we observe as a natural phenomenon, okay? That's science, okay? Science isn't what somebody told you. Science isn't a university. It's not a white coat. It's a method that we can use to get to some degree of truth. So if you employ logic and objectivity in the scientific method, and you come to an understanding that there's no way that the history presented is possible. There's no way the earth is as old as they said. There's no way that buildings could have been built in the manner that they say they were built. Then you start to get an understanding of what this world may be. So I know that was a long answer, but that's, I think, the problem is people's belief system versus their ability to objectively evaluate information and incorporate that into their worldview to make some degree of change in their mindset.
Yes, so I just confirm what you said, belief system, and it always makes me think back to Yuri Bezmenov and demoralization. Because if someone is demoralized, the facts, the evidence does not matter anymore. I always love to quote him, and I always only do that to remind myself of it, just as we've seen in the sea crisis thing. It is, and I was even so stupid to again believe it, getting into BS online arguments, but it's not about logic, and it's, I guess, also relevant to discern whom can you talk with on, I don't know, what level, or it's really difficult because whilst we may naively, or me, want to believe we talk about facts and logic and try to discern things truthfully and honestly and with integrity and as much skepticism and discernment as possible, for many, for various reasons, it is still an emotional response. And as long as we're in that, just like in politics or whatever, everyone's just a play ball in the larger system and cannot really proceed in that endeavor of discerning the truth. So I think that's a really, really big hurdle. But of course, we've all been individually and collectively traumatized into that, I want to say, I was about to say not disinfectant, but state of not disrepair, but not perfectly functioning in terms of both brain hemispheres, or however we would say that.
That's a very polite way to put it, Raphael. I always enjoy your, politeness. You're gentle.
It's nice putting something in 3 sentences that allude to an idea that could be expressed in a few swear words as well. Probably correct, but
If you notice, when I was talking, Raphael, I always say, as far as we're taught history, because I know it's that we're not taught right, but that's when I go back, I say, well, as far as we were taught, that's all I go, because we're not been taught right. So it's, to me, there's too much evidence that there was something here. I mean, and Bible believers aren't going to go with it because it defeats their narrative. So
and even here, I just want to point out, I think it's very relevant to understand the official models or official history also as well as possible. However, just mostly people don't know either, or they know so much or too much about it that then they get identified with that understanding. And it is not about seeking the truth anymore, but potentially protecting their professorship or online following or God knows what, which, yeah.
Well, that's one thing I always would irritate people on the Z show in a good way. He would say, I'm not leaving anything off the table. And he would entertain anything. And then guys would get mad at him, but they would stay. But he was really good about that. He didn't have open panels like this. He would have 1 or 2 people on like this. So that was the only difference between him and Nachi's channel. But they both got the same views, as far as I know, following them, that they listen to everything.
I wanted to bring this up. When one investigates the understandings held by, whether you want to call them the secret societies, the mystery schools, the occult fraternities, whatever name or term you want to apply to these organizations, you find that they held, generally speaking, a very particular history regarding this earth and humanity, a history that's completely contradicts the one that was presented to us. So for me, it begs the question, why? Why do the secret brotherhoods, whether they be the Theosophical Society, the so-called Rosicrucians, the Masons, I mean, we can go on regarding these societies. Why do they all hold a particular understanding of our history, the religious figures presented, and why is it so counter to the one that was presented to mankind at large. Because when you can get a hold of their writings and the things that they have published and presented to the public, you find a particular story regarding the creation of man, the concept of God, the creator. And it's in some ways it's a very odd story, a very strange story, but it's only really strange relative to our conditioned understanding of history, religion, and otherwise. But I would implore anybody who's really interested in the topic, look into the beliefs held by the ones, let's say, in the privileged class. The families that were basically the wealthy families throughout history, the ones who were in control, in power, whether they were the priest class or the royalty. And you find a very particular belief system that has a lot of commonalities all around the world. And again, it's quite different to the one that's presented. They present a reality that is much more than the physical world that they presented to us through their pseudoscience. They present a reality that is spiritual, that's mental, that's astral, and etheric. They present a multi-tiered reality, one in which very likely the base reality exists in more of a spiritual realm or a mental conscious realm. An idea that what we perceive as physical is simply a manifestation, whether it's a lower frequency or a lower vibration, of some higher spiritual realm or some deeper, more conscious reality. And this is the understandings that they had. They certainly viewed the Messiah figure quite different than the presentation that we were given in the 66 canonical books associated with the Bible. And the entire paradigm is one in which, firstly, was occluded from us, and secondly, is completely paradoxical to the physical world that we've been presented with through scientism, this idea of mere particles. Okay, they removed a concept of ether from science. And even if you look into the scientists pre-World War I, right around the turn of the 20th century, you find that the scientific understandings were much different and were greater and surpassed our current understandings by magnitude. They understood the tenets and the mechanisms of electromagnetism. They understood they had ways to harness the world around us. They may have had methods to harness energy simply from the ether or the atmosphere. Well, what do we have now? We have a dumbed down science. We're presented with a periodic table that gives us elements. They present a subatomic world that, to me, is no less more evident or proven than the macro world of the universe. So it begs the question, why? If this is indeed true, if they hold a science that is different than the presented, if they hold a history that is different and religions that are different than presented, it begs the question, why? What is the truth? And what does it mean? Because people will default in the face of such overwhelming topics. People will impose certain psychological defense mechanisms, and they will typically default to, statements like, what does it matter anyway? Why does it matter? When you ask, why does it matter? You're basically asking, why does truth matter? And I implore you, what does that say about your mentality and your consciousness? Are you willing to accept a completely falsified reality? Are you willing to accept an agenda that was perpetrated upon you, likely for some degree of control? That's what it really is saying. So I implore people, what is it saying about you when you dismiss these topics in the interest of going along to get along? because I assure you, this world will reward you for compliance. And at that point, what are you? You're basically just a house slave. And in my book, that is the lowest thing you could be. Okay, if you're going to keep me in bondage against my will and violate my natural rights and the rights of God in creation, that's one thing. But if I'm then going to choose my enslavement, that's to me analogous with damnation. And at that point, you have sold your soul to this earthly realm. So to dismiss these topics outright, again, I think is a psychological protection mechanism because of the consequences of opening one's mind. Go ahead.
Anybody? Any takers?
Hey,
Go ahead.
I was going to say,
The whole idea of ciphering into or out of reality is a very real phenomenon.
Can you
Hey,
maybe?
John, we can't hear you hardly, and your mic is crackling quite a bit. So I don't know if you
My
have
mic is
headphones
not
or
working as well as I would like.
yeah, it's difficult to hear you, man. Bean, go ahead. If you wanted to, you were saying something earlier. Go ahead.
I was just thinking about that when 2020 came around, that C thing, you know. I wonder if that's why they wanted everybody to stay in, so you couldn't go out and test shit and look, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, very possible for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I go ahead.
Oh no, I was just wondering about it. You know, like if that had anything to do with it, maybe partially. You know, maybe.
In my opinion, this is just my opinion, but I think all the lies that is perpetrated upon us, it is about control. At the end of the day, you know, they want to control your perception of this reality. They want to control what you think about history. They want to control where you think you come from. They want to control who you are, what your capabilities are. You know, you're just a dumb slave. You know, and no spiritual power, no ability to think through anything. All you're going to do is be born, eat, sleep, work, and pay your taxes and die, and try to not to leave a mess, you know,
Yeah.
kind of deal. So if they can convince a massive population of these so-called perspectives that they want people to believe, then they have you by the balls. They have humanity by the balls. When people and when enough people actually wake up to what this reality is really about, and that they have power in each and every one of your hands, then they're going to be shaking in their boots because they realize that no matter what they do, they can't control people, you know. But as long as people believe that they can be controlled and manipulated, they will not stop. You know, that's just the way it's working. So this whole process, it's a process. It's a war. It's actually, we're in a war. A war has been waged against us, and vast majority of people are not realizing that to be the case. You know, they think everything is normal. You know, we live life, and why would anybody lie to you? And they just go about their lives, and they never really come to any realization of what this reality is about. But it's a spiritual warfare for sure, without a doubt, and it's also physical, psychological, and emotional warfare as well. Anybody else?
No, not. Thank you for your show. I got to go now. Thank you for letting me on. Z, as always, awesome to
Just
see
wanted
you.
to try it. Mic check again. I made some adjustments. Does that help?
Okay, thanks, Harmon, and take care. And John, yes, I think there's slight delay on your end, and go ahead and speak up.
Yeah, it's about 30-second delay. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm going to continue watching, but I appreciate all you. I think this community definitely lacks some connectivity, or connection. Like, we are pretty divided amongst ourselves, and that's why I typically avoid. But I do want to be part of this community, and I wish you guys all well. I'll try this again when I get a better setup.
Awesome. Welcome back, John, next time. And hopefully you get that mic fixed and connectivity fixed. And thanks for being up here. Okay. Talk to you next time.
Ciao for now.
All right. Take care. Wow, 30-second delay. That was I mean, I'm having a better connection up here over in the Himalayas than John over there. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, hopefully we'll get that fixed next time.
That's that Obama wireless, man. You can't fix that.
It's kind of ridiculous. I was like, is this like some places in Germany or something? This is first world internet for you. What a joke.
It's the ether, man.
It's like when they're communicating, quote unquote, with the ISS, and they have to pretend like there's a lag, and then they forget that there's supposed to be like a 4-second lag. I always find those interesting, which, reminds me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Nach, it reminds me, because I know this came up earlier about the ISS fakery and NASA fakery. At this point, the fakery can't be denied. And that's always one of the things that amazes me when we discuss these topics. I'm tempted to just have a supercut. And I know actually Rose presented it last time when she was on. And there was people in the chat giving her crap like, oh, we know all this. Well, not everybody knows this, and she was presenting like a supercut of the NASA fakery. I mean, look no further than it's amazing. I mean, they're on harnesses and wires, and they're on zero-G planes. It's quite obvious. And this is analogous to me to the chemtrail issue, because it's so obvious, it's so egregious, it's so in everybody's faces, but yet you can take 100 people and they could all look at this same obvious thing, and you'll have the majority of the people deny their very senses. And they'll just do the most incredible mental gymnastics to try to explain away what they're seeing. Because again, they can't grasp the magnitude of such a deception, because the implications are huge, and that's why these topics matter. And that's why, there is so much division, as John said on his way out, that there's so much division in the quote unquote community. Well, first of all, what community really? Much like Nach said, you can be a truth seeker, but beyond that, there's commonalities certainly, but I've learned that the idea of a community is something that we should take very, with a huge grain of salt.
Well, and just as an armchair sociologist, if it is correct that it requires a certain degree of nonconformity, it only makes sense that you will get the outliers of the Gaussian curve, and most likely not those that would be the first to follow a mass movement or whatever, and therefore, conform and wear the uniform and so on, right? So that in itself, I think, is normal almost, or would to be expected, that then you have many individuals, they feel association and being truth seekers, but apart from that, of course, they may, and actually in a way almost should have, widely differing perspectives, especially because we realize, at least at this point, we don't have a complete puzzle, but only parts which are to be put together. At least that's what I'm thinking is happening. So just wanted to point that out, that that's not necessarily because those kind of people are bad or whatever, but just because they are nonconformists, which is a strength as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just interject real quick? I mean, I don't like this idea about like we and stuff like this. This is just like nonsensical to me. We're all just individual. Again, I use the word we. We're all individuals, and there is no cohesive flat Earth movement. I would like to see something more cohesive, but the truth of the matter is people are going in different directions. They have beef with each other for whatever reason, and you can say the same thing about like the rights movement, and stuff like this. But the flat Earth movement within so far as I'm concerned about like the truth movement is concerned, is the largest out there. Okay, like when you look at the alternative history research, like which I am fascinated about, it's like a fraction compared to the flat earthers. Like flat earth is like the meat of this plate as far as I'm concerned. Don't you guys agree? Or Z, do you think that's not the case, or not?
Um, yeah, I would say I mostly agree with you, and I think it's due to the fact that the FE topic is something that is tangible. It's substantial. You could bring somebody down to the beach, and you can show them. You could basically debunk boats over the horizon, right? You could transmit a radio signal thousands of miles over the ocean and show them that there's no bulge of water blocking it. You can demonstrate it. When we get into topics that are a bit more abstract, it becomes more diffuse for people, right? So it's not hard for me to show somebody a chemtrail and say, look, what do you think that is coming out of the back of that plane? Do you think that's natural? Do you think that a jet engine that's almost 100% efficient and burns very cool and only in certain circumstances produces some type of contrail? Do you think it's natural that it's spreading out this huge diffuse cloud over the sky? Those type of things can be shown, but when you get into the alternative history thing, everything becomes harder. How do you substantiate a document that may be hidden in the Vatican basement, or that might be, being held, some knowledge held by, some Masonic temple somewhere, right? Like, these are only stories that we can get loosely. So I think maybe that's the issue, that the flat Earth thing is it's something that involves, the applied physical world. And that might be, for me at least, I'll speak for myself. That's why the flat Earth topic is my number one topic, and I'm so passionate about, which is a plus and a minus, because once you're a flat Earther, people who are not in that community, they're always going to put that stamp on you. They're going to label you a flat Earther, and it's very difficult to escape. But to me, that's why it's the thing I talk about the most, because again, I can show you level water. I can demonstrate level water. It's hard for me to demonstrate, it's hard for me to prove a negative. So if they're claiming a Christ that lived 2,000 years ago, in the land we call Israel, and somebody else is claiming that that's false, it's very difficult to prove or disprove one either way, right? So I think that's probably why you see the alternative history as a lesser topic, but I do think it's gaining steam, and much like any controversial topic, it's always to the peril of let's say, the pioneers in this. I've watched prominent flat earthers reject the alternative history people within the flat earth community. I alluded to that a bit ago, because there's strong feelings on either side. So again, what is the evidence? What is the proof? Can we get beyond our own subjective interpretations of things, our own cognition and our belief system, and get down to objective reality? And how can we do that? Let's look at some things. Look at radiocarbon dating. Is there any proof that it's legitimate? I would say not. So if something is carbon dated to be millions of years old, well, yes, the academic community is giving you a story regarding that, but what's the evidence? Investigate it. See, if it really holds up. Can something be dated back millions of years? What is the half-life of a radio isotope? Does it exist? Does it have the same decay rate as they say? Can they measure it? Again, we find that what is called science in this modern society seems to be nothing more than pseudoscience. If somebody wants to know what that is, it's basically something presented as science that cannot be proven. It's outside of the scientific method. All right. This
Yeah.
then becomes what, many of us will term as scientism, because it's then nothing more than a religion, and religions are belief systems, nothing more.
Let me welcome David to the chat or the panel. How's it going, David? BB, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi. You sound like you're European.
No, I'm not. I sound European. I'm Chinese, but I'm living in Europe.
Oh, okay. You're Chinese living in Europe. Okay. Which part of Europe are you from, sir?
Western. I'm close to Raphael, where he is.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, nice to hear from you. What brings you here today?
I think your content is fascinating, and also what Raphael's content has been fascinating for me for maybe over a year. And I think I have like 2 points to say. One is obviously flat Earth. The second one is history. Maybe I do the flat Earth one first, then we will see whether we have time for the alternative history. So I didn't hear your interview, but I think the general idea is that, to me, obviously we have this classic Hegelian dialectic now set up by the mainstream or even by the alternative media. Basically, we're saying where you have flat Earth at one hand and ball Earth at the other hand. I see this, it's a typical setup, but the reality is, I think more precisely, we're asserting that the ball Earth model is a failed hypothesis. That's all we know.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And also, basically, the people in the, I wouldn't say elite, but I would say the parasite class is basically, if you accept this analogy, is that they are the prison guard. They are asking us, the prisoners, what's outside the prison. All we know, we figured out, is that the prison is not a ball. And also, based on our primitive or civilian technology, we could say the ball is the prison is at least 100 times than what the prison textbook is telling us. So the implication, So the implication is this. I think I heard a lot of people mention that, what does this matter? I still have to go to work like tomorrow. But the fiscal implication, well, I'm sad to say, but most of people are fiscally illiterate. The fiscal implication is this, that everything, let's say, we only know the prison is not a ball, and the prison size is 100 times bigger. Then meaning, even if you are working as a slave, right, everything you pay, the current pricing level, current prison taxation level, should be 1% of what you are paying now. I mean, for everyone, the person who work high-flying job in Wall Street, or the kids working in McDonald's, right? 1%, other than what you are paying now. I don't know I don't care what the current level is. So this is the motivation for everyone. Everyone, ball also, flat earth. This is the benefit you should see, because you could say, okay, the Earth is still a ball, but 100 times bigger. Imagine how much you would pay for the gas, the current level, if the ball is so big. Or if
Yeah,
it's
let me just interject real quick because, there's a video on the history, fiction, or science, and Gleb Novsky, the partner of Anatoly Fomenko, he was saying that back in the old world days when the empire, the tax was ridiculously low. Do you remember this, Raphael?
Yes, so of course, also this has to be, verified independently as much as possible. But Nosovsky puts forward the hypothesis that before the empire fell, let's call it Ottoman Empire for lack of a better term, the ones under stress, in his view at least, actually were not the populace, but the ruling class. And they received very little taxation, and many people actually were exempted, many of the commoners, for various reasons. And it seemed, or he puts it in an interesting way, as if the royal family and so on and the administrators actually were very effective and efficient servants, more prone to burnout than the average worker who had very low or no taxes. That's what Gleb Nosovsky at least says in that particular interview. And just one thing in regards to what David just said, I like your thinking, even in the terms of if you would say it's double the size. However, at the same time, and I agree also with just want to explore it because exploration, spirit, curiosity, everything, 100% agree. However, isn't the big joke actually that this is already the case right now because virtually 90% of the known surface area, even not even talking about underground, is warded off. So we don't even have proper access or anything even to the known area. So even within here, and probably, and from what I heard, even always these stories of gold mountains and so on, but even here, if they would start accounting for all kinds of resources that are probably in military restricted areas, then even that would completely throw off their economy simulation. And that's also why, in my view, they needed to suppress certain plants, or still do, medicines, technologies, and so on, because many, many things, even natural things, just are, in my mind at least, too efficient to allow a scarcity and fear-based system to continue. And that's why all of those things are banned and restricted. Even just speaking even of the known area and known things and known suppressed technologies. You catch my drift, yeah? But also I agree with you.
Go ahead. Sorry to cut you off, David. Let's get to your second point that you wanted to talk about.
Okay, I'll just finish this fiscal part. I'm trying to say is
Yeah. Go ahead.
If the Earth is a ball but 100 times bigger, then the resources are still limited. If you are ball Earth, right? But you would be paying much less if it's 100 times bigger. And if Earth is actually the size is unknown or flat, or however, so it's like unlimited, then basically we're being put here by a creator to experience life. Work is optional because the resources is given. Okay, we still need to have a kind of structure so people help each other, but you're not supposed to be working like as a slave. It is not the objective. I think the fiscal system has turned the world upside down, that your experience, your main task has been reversed by the usury bankers. So that's the I think the proper word is we are non-ball earthers. We don't know the size of the Earth, but the official textbook is wrong. So I will move on to the history part. I was listening into Raphael's presentation maybe a couple of months ago about the correlation between Old German and Japanese. I actually looked into this because the book they mentioned is called Nihon Konji. It's basically the official ancient history of Japan, and it's so fascinating that some German guy figured out that certain words, not certain names in this book sounds like old German, and he figured out the meaning in German, the modern German, and also I figured out